I'm Lexi.
I'm Caroline.
I'm Morgan. I'm Emma, and our topic is school shootings and arming school teachers, and we are now open for questions.
And here we go. Let's talk. Ooh, me first. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the topic of arming teachers. Tell me, what is the status of that right now? Do we know anything about places that are arming teachers to address the school shooting threat? And is there anybody locally who's doing that?
Okay, so arming school teachers has been a huge controversial issue throughout the United States. Donald Trump initially proposed the idea of it, and a lot of people have been upset about it, and some people agree. It hasn't been passed yet, so I don't know of any schools that have started arming school teachers yet, but I know that there are some schools that have been looking into it.
Okay. Anybody else? Places that are doing it or are considering it?
I know, like Frederick Douglass, they don't have guns, but they are putting like metal detectors in for the students. So that, as far as the school security.
Okay. Why Frederick Douglass in particular?
Oh, like why?
Why Frederick? I mean, we have a lot of high schools here, certainly. Why is Frederick Douglass one in particular?
Because they had one of their students brought a gun to school and it went off.
Okay.
So I think that they were kind of taking account for that.
They're also a new school, like a newer high school.
Right.
And I bet that they're trying to start off their legacy, I guess, with safer strategies, I guess. But that's just one idea that I have about why they would do it.
So did you guys look at the whole issue of school shootings, or did you really zero in on specifically this one potential solution or way to address it, specifically arming teachers?
Kind of looked at it as like more like
You looked at the whole issue?
More like strategically armed, or should they not be armed?
we looked at it as a whole, like the issue, but we also clued in on the fact of arming school teachers as well.
When we talk about school shootings, there's a number of incidences that are recent that come to mind, and there's a number of incidences probably a little further back. Talk to me about specific instances of school shootings that have really brought this subject to the kind of the forefront.
Well, the Columbine shooting,
Okay.
I believe, was in 1999.
Okay.
Was the starting point in the United States of the school shootings.
Okay.
Ever since then, it's been a really big issue. It wasn't right directly afterwards, but recently, from like 2013 to now, it started being a big issue.
Okay. So Columbine, kind of the genesis of a lot of the modern discussion about school shootings. What do we know about that particular incident?
So, Columbine happened in
1999.
yes.
And it killed 13 people and wounded more than 20 before the gunman, I guess, turned the gun on himself and committed suicide.
Two gunmen.
Two guns.
Yes.
Very unique in that it was actually two shooters in that particular incident. Okay. What about some other ones? We've talked about Columbine, kind of the start up until today. We've certainly had a lot recently. Tell me about a couple other ones that have happened.
There was the major one recently was the Parkland, Florida shooting.
Parkland.
And that in that shooting, a 19-year-old guy came in and he slaughtered and killed 17 students and athletes. And that's the most recent one. So that's the one that has like the most. That's why I think all of the arming school teachers and everything in the state is coming because of this major shooting.
What about in the state of Kentucky? Have you all found any research of a couple of shootings that has happened in the state of Kentucky?
In Marshall County High School, Benton, Kentucky. So he killed two 15-year-old students and shot 16 people, injuring them, sending them to the hospital. The student faced 2 charges of murder and 12 counts of first degree assault. So that was pretty recent. That was a few years ago.
Did that hit a little closer to home for you ladies, being students in a high school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Knowing that it could be so close to our school.
certainly. It's a little easier to be a little more removed from it if it's happening in Colorado or Florida, but something happening certainly a couple of counties away. All right. What do you ladies propose as a, I don't think you can solve it, so maybe not a solution, but what is the best way to address these mass shootings in schools? We've certainly got some things on the table here. What has your research told you might or might not be effective ways to address these school shootings? Caroline mentioned one at a local high school.
I think there should be more school security. I
Okay.
just think that there should be metal detectors, and also with I think that the shooters that usually come have mental health issues, and I think that schools should be more educated with mental health. Teachers should be more educated, look out for mental health issues.
Let's talk about LCA and the security. Where do you see our security breaches here at LCA? Where are some places in the school that you feel like aren't very secure and monitored?
Well, I know one example is the front door where people buzz in to get into the school. I've had past experiences where I've rung in and they didn't even ask for my name. Like people in the past have just let whoever in. That kind of makes me feel a little iffy about how our school could have potentially let in.
What about other entrances during the day?
There's I know, last year I left early and there was a guy breaking into people's cars. It's you never know when anything's gonna happen. You're just walking out and it's not like you can have someone out there watching. I mean, I'm sure they could put cameras that, I don't know if there's cameras or not, but I'm sure there could be cameras that are you could still see around every perimeter of the school, just in case something were to happen.
There are cameras, just to answer that question.
So, you mentioned metal detectors. Have you thought maybe about the logistics of doing that? So let's say, for example, here at LCA, we have roughly 500 high schoolers. How long do you think it would take for them to come through metal detectors in the morning?
It would take a long time.
So, mathematically, how many do you think maybe you could do in a minute? How many students? Two or three students? Let's say 3. So you'd be talking about 130 minutes to get all the kids through. So that's a little over 2 hours. So you'd have to kind of start a little earlier, like 6 in the morning, after you get into your class, right?
You guys were okay with waking up earlier?
And then, of course, we have a fire drill or something during the day. We need to reinstitute that, to allow extra time to come back in, right? Do you know how other schools have addressed that? Because schools like Frederick Douglass have actually more high school students than we do.
I know that they do use wands occasionally when needed, but then I know that they also put in permanent metal detectors. I'm not sure how they handle that, but I know that they're there.
So are they the only public high school in Fayette County that has metal detectors?
I believe so. I think that Case Creek High School sometimes does spontaneous wanding checks. I don't know how often they do that, but I have heard that they do spontaneous ones just at random, but not every day.
So you guys mentioned metal detectors. We're going to get into our new teachers and the other solutions, security-wise, to help cut down on school shootings. Where those are only 2 options.
Lexi, you mentioned additional security. Were you talking about security personnel, or were you talking specifically with the metal detectors?
Just about
Okay.
just more overall.
Okay. Yeah.
I did some research and it was talking about random times when they would do backpack checks, drug testing. Obviously, we already do that. Locker checks. Just more than we do now, I guess, just to make sure that we check and make sure that students aren't bringing anything into the school.
What about how long backpacks in general? Would you guys feel comfortable with that if it increased the safety of students in school?
I don't think I would go as far as to do that.
We weren't allowed to have backpacks in our high school. Yeah, that's one of the things that we did.
All right, let's talk about one of the subjects at hand, so arming school teachers. Where do you ladies stand individually on arming school teachers? Do you think that that's a good idea, and why or why not? I'd kind of like to go down the panel. We'll start with you, Emma.
I personally am against arming school teachers
Okay.
with guns. I think that it would be suitable to give teachers something, maybe like tasers and pepper spray, anything to kind of slow down the process of a shooting. But I think that teachers wouldn't feel comfortable with a gun. We all went through like classrooms and interviewed a few teachers, and 8 of the 12 said they wouldn't feel comfortable carrying a gun. And some said, even the ones that said they would, said that they would want to go through intensive training before in a lot of selection. So that's just my opinion.
Morgan?
I do not think that teachers should be armed, mainly just because that's not in their job description.
Okay.
I don't think they feel comfortable having possession of a gun, and I don't think students would feel comfortable knowing there's a gun in the classroom. I think it almost would create more issues than there already are. But I agree with Emma that they should be armed with either a mace or a taser or something to just slow down the process.
Okay. Carolyn?
I don't think every teacher should be armed, but I believe that, like, obviously Officer Hart, people I know, I think it was Mr. Someone was like an ex-police officer, so I believe like somebody who has like higher training than what some things that like a teacher would have should be armed.
So maybe not arm every teacher, but somebody who has specialty training.
But they should also still, like, the gun should be kept in, like, safe with a block on it, and only the teacher should know the code.
Okay. Lexi?
I believe that teachers shouldn't be armed. I think that it's also not their job description, it's not their responsibility or anything. And I think that there should be a security guard, like, to have a gun.
All right, so for my follow-up then, teachers shouldn't be armed. I think most of you said, Caroline, you said maybe in specific situations. What about administrators? What about the director of campus operations or technology? What about the headmaster? We're not in classrooms all the time. Would that be suitable, do you think, if we were properly trained? So maybe not teachers, but other school personnel that aren't Officer Hart? I'm seeing lots of yeses, so is that a yes across the board? Okay. Do you think there would be a benefit if we armed some quantity of our faculty or staff, whether it's an administrator or a teacher? Do you think if we did make that step, is that something that you would broadcast and say, Mr. Cross, I think somebody brought up, Mr. Cross has a weapon and is ready to defend? Or is that something that would stay maybe secret, like an air marshal program? I think on planes you have air marshals, maybe not. You're never really sure who the air marshal is. If you have one on your flight, is there benefit to that? If we did arm a teacher, but nobody really knew who that was, is that a deterrent?
Yeah, no one should.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Absolutely.
Kept a secret.
So-
And only like 1 or 2 people. I don't think we need like 5, 6 guns on campus. But
Okay.
if people are trusted, like Officer Hart or maybe even like Coach Galloway, who's like central in like the high school office.
Mhm.
So,
I'm scared of Coach Galloway already, so you arm him, it's going to be a whole nother. Totally get it. You ladies agree with that?
I don't even think that the teacher should know.
Okay.
The teacher has to,
Okay.
just in case they don't have to.
So we would be okay if it was maybe somebody trained. We don't necessarily know who that is. Definitely not arm all the teachers, I think is what I heard, because the teacher might not be comfortable with that, may not be trained. That's not part of their job duties, okay? Interesting. I'm taking notes on these, okay?
So one of the arguments against arming the administrators or people in the school beyond safety officers is that first responders can come to a situation and encounter adults who are armed, and innocent people could get hurt or a gun battle could ensue. How do you address that?
Could you ask the question?
Sure. So I'll give you, for instance, let's say that the head of school was authorized to carry a weapon and a situation arose, and in that function, he came to the defense of the students, but at the same time, first responders are coming on the scene. Now they see an adult with a weapon in their hand who is not a perpetrator, but it could potentially turn into a very ugly situation. How would you avoid that if you didn't know who the adults were that were carrying a weapon?
It could be wearing like their teacher badge or something to identify like
Okay.
who they are.
I don't know, just some form of identification that the students knew about, I guess, that they've told us about in advance, so that we could tell.
Or they might be like the first one to, like, they should wait on the first responders maybe, like at the door, to say, hey, like I'm the one that had the gun, so that they would know.
So let me shift gears, ask a totally different question. Should arming teachers be different for a Christian school than for other schools?
We're all students, I guess. We all have the same, even though our parents pay for us to go here, we all have the same feelings and thoughts that go through our head about trusting our teachers and feeling safe in school. So I think it should go for everyone the same.
Why do you think there's been such an increase lately in the school shooting?
And let me ask a follow-up to that. Has there actually been an increase? Do you have any numbers, statistics, data on that? If there has actually been an increase, or is this an increase in media coverage and attention and awareness?
There was, just in 2018, there's been 20 school shootings, and that averages out to, 1.25 school shootings a week. And then between 2013 and 2015, 59 people were killed shooting incident at schools or colleges. And then since
So we've seen an incline since, I guess, since.
Well, I don't want to get away from that question, but just to drill out further, Caroline, do you know in that of those statistics, how many of those involve like multiple shootings, as opposed to there's quite a number of school shootings where it's just a weapon, and perhaps it's a dispute between two people. So do you have any statistics that break it down that would fall in the category of what we generally think of as a school shooting, like 3 or more people are assaulted by a weapon? Do you have any kind of statistical breakdown on that?
I looked up the difference between a school shooting and a mass shooting, and also terrorist attack. A school shooting is any attack where a gun is fired and anyone is killed. It could mean 1 to 5 to 17 involving a firearm. But a mass shooting outside of schools, I guess. So, for instance, the Las Vegas shooting.
Right.
That would be a mass shooting. Well, it would need to be at least 4 victims to be killed. So the 20 that have happened, 1 student at least has died in each of those. So that results that those are a school shooting. Those are.
Wasn't there an incident recently, I think here in town, where somebody discharged a firearm in a classroom and shot themselves?
Yes.
Unintentionally. I think they moved, sat, pushed something, and shot themselves. Does that count as a school shooting? Because they weren't looking to hurt other people. And if so, does that throw off your numbers?
I think the 20 only is the people that have died, like
Okay.
the schools that someone has died. So I don't know if that counts for that. But I think that would still be a shooting because he had a gun, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
Did you find any statistics of Christian schools in general that have been?
It's a good question, though, because that goes back to Columbine. You guys remember what sort of they did stand apart from some of the others?
Yes, the 2 killers came and they asked all the victims in the region hall before they should.
So they were specifically targeting Christians. but you haven't found maybe a statistical correlation between these shootings that have happened in the last 18